What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Mountains to Surf podcast. This is a weekly show where we will tell true fishing stories, stories from the mountains, the surf, and everywhere in between. We break down one historic fishing story, one modern day story, and what's happening right now in the fishing world. These are real events, real fish, and real moments that shape the sport that we all love. So I wanted to dip my toes in the podcast world. Just kind of bored. I'm on call for work, so I can't really get out of the house. Uh, And full disclosure, I did use ChatGPT to help me write this. This is the first episode. At the end, I'm gonna ask if anybody has any stories they want to share. Just put them in the comments, or if you don't have enough characters, just email me at mountainsdesurf1@gmail.com. With that, let's get into the first story, and it's going to be George Perry and the bass that changed fishing. In June of 1932, during the Great Depression, a man named George Perry launched a small boat onto Montgomery Lake in Georgia. At the time, largemouth bass fishing wasn't the massive industry it is today. Perry was fishing with simple tackle, a creek chub lure, and basic line when he hooked into a bass that immediately felt different. The fight wasn't explosive. Instead, the fish stayed deep, heavy, and stubborn, a sign seasoned anglers recognize as something special. When Perry landed the fish, he knew it was big, but he didn't know he had just created the most famous record in freshwater fishing history. The bass weighed 22 pounds, 4 ounces, a number that would stand unchallenged for nearly 90 years. What's remarkable is that the fish was weighed on a certified scale at a local post office, not a tournament weigh-in, not a camera crew, just a man with a fish and no idea how legendary the moment it would become. That bass would become That bass would become the standard every trophy largemouth since has been measured against that single fish. That's a pretty nice bass. I think the biggest bass I've caught has been about 6 pounds. Got a little gap to close there to catch up to that one. So the second story is going to be uh, current, and it's going to be pure cobia and the chaos on the boards. Fast forward to modern times, and one of the most dramatic fishing stories keeps repeating itself along the southern piers. Cobia, also known as ling, migrate close to the shore, often cruising right past public fishing piers where nobody expects to see a 100-pound fish. In multiple documented cases across Florida, Alabama, and the Carolinas, pier anglers have hooked cobia using live bait, jigs, and even cut bait meant for smaller species. Once hooked, these fish turn piers into chaos zones. Lines cross, drags screams, anglers run the length of the pier trying to keep the fish from wrapping pylons. Some fights last over an hour, and many are lost. But the ones that they land, they become instant legends. Videos of these catches rack up millions of views because they show fishing at its most raw. No boat, no advantage, just man versus fish. And I've yet to catch a cobia. I really like to. We do see them every now and then on the piers here in Myrtle Beach, uh, including tarpon, believe it or not. I saw it was August, I believe. I was fishing on Apache Pier, and it was one of those summers. This is last year. There weren't very many offshore storms, so that water just gets crystal clear. And the mullet were running, and he was under the mullet run, probably about 50 or 60 pounds. And that's the terrible thing about Myrtle Beach piers. You can only have two rods, unless you're king fishing, but that don't help you. Uh, if you could have a third rod tied with, a jig or a swim bait, something you could quickly grab and throw at a fish like that. But usually it's just two bottom rods or one bottom rod and one with a gotcha plug or something like that. Nothing you could fight a 50 or 60 pound tarpon with. Um, Yeah, believe it or not, we do get some crazy fishing in South Carolina. Just nobody is able to really catch them because you can only have two rods. So that's going to take us into story three. This is going to be uh, future events happening. Right now, fishing is changing faster than ever. Water temperatures are shifting migration timelines. Fish are showing up earlier in some areas and later in others. States are responding with new regulations aimed at protecting spawning fish and trophy class breeders, especially species like red drum, striped bass, and speckled trout. These changes aren't about limiting anglers, they're about making sure future generations have stories worth telling. So, for sure, uh, you're blind if you can't see environmental changes affecting these fish. Uh, I think for the last 2 or 3 years, the Spanish mackerel runs have been terrible. The red drum runs have been terrible. The only thing I really caught last year was flounder. I had a good year for flounder. Uh, so hopefully, and then uh, the commercial uh, menhaden trolling. Those guys got, I think, an extra 800,000 tons of fish that they were allowed to harvest in last year or in the coming year. And if you didn't know, menhaden is like one of the number one food species in the ocean for all predatorial fish. So take that as you will. I mean, I wouldn't even know where to begin to protest that sort of thing. But surely fish oil pills aren't as important as preserving fish species, you know? So that's going to bring us to the outro. Like I said, this is a pretty short podcast form. I'm not going to get too crazy with it. I might try to look up stories online or something. Like I said, I just used Chat GPT to help me write this one. Did a pretty good job, I think. And as I get into the spring, summer, and fall, I'll be fishing so much I doubt I'll have the time to really keep up with a podcast. But we'll see how this one does. So let's see here. Fishing stories don't start legendary; they become legendary because someone was there to witness it. If you've heard a true fishing story from your hometown, your pier, your river, drop it in the comments. This has been the Mountains of Surf podcast. We'll try to do a new episode every week. Tight lines, and I'll see you next time.